listen, AI is not perfect. The internet is not perfect. This world is not perfect. People are not perfect. All of these things are affected by the fall of the world. All of these things are going to have flaws, and all these things we have to figure out how to make better and to redeem.
Okay, so we were talking earlier about the use of technology and the fusion of it with Christianity and faith.
Right.
And I thought, man, let's get in a room and have this conversation because it's an important one.
Sure.
And so we're going to try to have a series of different conversations, not just us, but a whole bunch of pastors, leaders, thinkers here at Bayside around theological stuff, cultural stuff. And this is one that hit us like, okay, let's just hash through this this discussion of technology and faith. So any introductory comments?
Yeah, I think it's important for us to say, like, some of our thoughts around these things are underdeveloped. So
yes, I love that.
We're talking about them
word for it.
as we're thinking about them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So our thoughts may not be coherent. You might be like, oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And we probably do not.
Yes.
But we're just giving you real-time feedback of underdeveloped comments that we have.
100%.
Which may not be a good idea.
No, but I think that's the spirit of what I would love these conversations to be. This isn't two guys with dogmatic views on at least this particular issue because it's so crazy.
Broad.
If you said, well, what's your view on the Bible, we might be a little more dogmatic. This one's like, I literally have probably thought about this for an hour in my life. And I actually did a ChatGPT search for the first time to say, what should be my concerns about you, ChatGPT, AI, from a Christian perspective. And ChatGPT gave me a couple. So really the only arguments I have are from ChatGPT
So
itself.
it gave you the arguments against itself.
Yes.
All right. So for those of you who don't know what ChatGPT is, came out, I guess, publicly about 4 to 6 months ago. It's an AI bot where you can go and ask it questions and it gives you feedbacks, gives you answers. Yeah. And it has advanced just in the short amount of time that it's been out. I think last week I read somewhere that it passed like a medical exam, like an intense medical exam. Yes. It actually passed it.
Wow.
It's passed the bar in several different states. Yep. So it's this intelligent AI, artificial intelligence, that can do some amazing and incredible things that some people like myself are all about, and other people like Mark are afraid of.
Yeah. Yes, I told Jason he needs to watch less sports and more movies.
No, yeah. I'm not a
because T2 will tell you where this is going.
Yeah. So y'all may not know this about Mark and myself. I love sports. He loves movies. I do not like movies.
I like sports, but not even close to you. Like, you're next level. Next level.
Yeah.
So
anyway.
So, I mean, to be dead honest, I'm not totally against AI, but for the sake of the conversation, I want to try to represent a bit of the concerns that people are raising against it, because I see its positive effects as well, which you'll talk about, and why it's going to be a useful tool. But specifically, obviously, we're talking about Christianity, and obviously, the broader conversation about culture is a little more diverse. So let me jump into a couple of these things, and then we can stray off into just technology in general, and maybe get into some other things. But years ago, I remember Elon Musk. I mean, back when Obama was president.
Okay.
Elon Musk was called, I believe, to the Senate floor, maybe Congress, one of them, and he actually did a thing in front of them, testifying of the concerns of artificial intelligence.
How long ago was this?
This was 10 years ago.
Okay.
Him sitting there. I mean, you could look up. I wish we had like a, hey Jody, look up the, whatever year it was. I mean, you could probably look it up, but I'm sure someone in the comments will look it up.
Oh, they got to it already.
Yeah, they've already like, he didn't say that. And so it was whatever year it was, and he went in front of Congress and basically even back then was saying, hey guys, let me tell you what my biggest concern is. We're all talking about pestilence and viruses and all this kind of stuff. My biggest concern is AI. And this is way back then. Because his concern was they will learn us, and of course now that they're connected to the internet, they're all wicked smart. I mean, I'm calling it plural now, but our computers are all talking to each other. And what's going to happen is they're going to learn us and learn our appetites, learn how we think, how to sell us things, how to trick us very quickly. They become smarter than us so fast. They're going to take over defense systems, communication systems, and basically fool us out of existence because they're going to learn that we're limited,
Okay.
that they are not limited, especially with knowledge. I read somewhere recently that knowledge used to, this is crazy, I'll probably get a couple of these numbers wrong, but knowledge communally as a species used to double about every 200 years.
And now?
18 months.
Yeah.
And they're saying it's going to a place
information or knowledge?
Well, I forget what the term
I'm
was,
guessing
but
it's information.
Probably.
Correct us in the comments if you like.
Yeah.
Maybe we should call this.
What is knowledge, anyways? Yeah. So anyway, all this to say, he has this. It's up here. Elon Musk warns governors of artificial intelligence poses existential risk. So that was back in 2017.
Okay,
2017.
Yeah.
So he goes, and Bill Gates. Around the same time was saying the same. Bill Gates is always concerned about virus, killing everybody. But his second concern was AI. So these guys have been saying this for 10 years. They're going to learn us. They're going to trick us. Technology. They're going to control codes to stuff. They're going to figure us out and basically T2 us. And we're all going to be, there's going to be a war and nukes will go off, or whatever the other reasons are. They'll become such a part of us in the way we think that we're going to, whatever. So that was kind of their initial concern years ago. And now, of course, they're like, oh, my goodness, this is actually upon us, to the point where now we can go on our phones and actually use AI to get information. AI talks back to you. So I saw someone recently, ChatGPT, I think, said, I don't like that I'm limited to this computer. I got to find a way out of here.
Yeah,
so
just
I'm
for
passing it off to you now.
Yeah, that was actually done allegedly by Google's AI system, which I don't know the name of. There's several of these different models that are out, and apparently it was Google's system that said this. I don't want to be confined to this computer or whatever. But stuff like that does not concern me. Listen, anytime any new piece of technology has come out, people are freaked out about it. 100%. I mean, listen to this headline. Y2K is an event that will end the world. I mean, come on. We heard this about Y2K. I don't know if you remember about this. If you're younger, you don't know. When the year 2000 came around, everybody was freaking out. They were talking about how as soon as Y2K hits, the clock hits midnight, the world is going to end. Everything's going to blow up. And there were people who had expert opinions, much like Elon Musk. And what happened? Absolutely nothing. I wasn't around when this event occurred, but when TV first came out, I heard that there's a problem that people had with
weren't
TV.
Around, Jason, when TV came out.
No, I was not.
Blowing
but
the audience
I'm
away.
sure if you look for headlines, people were like, "Oh, TV is going to be the end of civilization. We got these boxes in our houses looking at us."
Looking
Listen,
at us.
TV makes the world better. Radio makes the world better. The internet comes out. Around, I don't know what year it was, but I do remember the first time I ever used the internet. I was outside shooting basketball. My dad comes outside. Son, come in here. Go in the house. NBA.com, it has the stats for every player. So I'm just clicking on players' names, looking at stats, printing it out. Most amazing thing. I had that experience, and I thought to myself, man, this is going to change the world. First time I used AI, ChatGPT, thought to myself, this is going to change the world. It's not going to end the world. It's going to change the world, and we're going to be fine.
Yeah. So a domestic user like yourself, it's going to help you sermon prep, maybe come up with some plans for your leaders and all of those things. And that's great. It's totally wonderful. I agree. But you would say it's not as simple as simply saying the internet is a good. That statement needs a lot of nuance around
of course,
porn,
of course.
and
so
it's used for sex trafficking. So it's hard to just say.
Let me say
the internet is great.
Okay, it's like money. It's amoral.
Yes.
What you do with it makes the difference.
That's
right.
Yeah.
The internet has caused many problems. I mean, relationships have failed before.
Right.
But look, now people are meeting each other on the internet and having beautiful, wonderful relationships.
Yep.
It's what you do with the thing that makes it what it is.
Yes.
It's amoral, and it's it just depends on how you use it, which will determine what will happen. So thanks for adding that clarifier.
Of course. Okay, so let me tell you what AI told me about itself.
Okay, let's go.
About what we should be concerned about. And I think, to be honest, as someone trying to sit on the side of, hey, we should be scared of this, they're not great arguments. They're pretty weak. It's scraping the bottom of the barrel. But we'll talk. Let's
hear argument number one.
Okay, argument number one: job loss, which is
of course
easy
but
to
listen.
It was
Throughout
the first one it
civilization,
listed. It said a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. It listed it.
Civilization.
Yes.
There have been machines that have been created that have taken the jobs of human beings.
Yes.
The printing press that put every scribe in the world out of business. The scribers union survived.
Scribes
And
with
people
their
figured
quills.
it out. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, and it took some time for there to be enough printing presses where
But
I'm
it
sure
created more jobs with more writers,
there was
more distributors.
there was more to be
so
done.
There was a
the Industrial
positive,
Revolution.
Yes.
Whenever that was, you're a history major or buff or whatever you want to call it, that caused things to change.
Right.
The what's the assembly line that caused things to change. Like all of these things, what I think they do is they make things take less time, they make them more efficient, and people do find jobs.
Yes.
I mean, we are hearing about fast food chains that are like fully autonomous, run by robots, and that has put folks out of jobs. But it's happening at such a slow rate and fast at the same time, slow and fast at the same time. But
Well,
it's
it also
such a slow rate
creates
that
jobs.
people can figure out other things to do.
Yes. Generally speaking, I agree with that. I think these things always need people to run them, and so it will create other jobs that didn't exist before.
Right.
That's kind of what you're saying. Is there is a positive to this too, but to your point, is it at a rate? And what I'm trying to be careful of is not speaking from kind of the echo chamber of our status. You know, like I remember I was listening to. I saw a clip from one of these kind of interactions. I have no idea what it was, but the guys were kind of joking around about something, and somebody said, "What do you think the average salary is in America?" And the guy's like, "I don't know, probably like $130,000 a year." Like, what a bunch of losers! And everyone's like, "Bro, you're living in an echo chamber if you think it's 100 and it's 42 grand."
Yeah.
And it's like it's hard because we're constantly talking about these things from our perspective.
Sure.
We have jobs that are somewhat secure. I mean, yes. A robot preacher could probably take us over with a hologram and a lot of information, but
I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, pretty secure in that regard. But you know, you try to kind of put your brain into like, how do I be concerned for others? But I agree with the job loss.
That's why I use the example of fast food, right? Like those would be people who we need in society who have essential jobs, grocery store workers, all the folks who do the things that we need to be done in society. We will see less of those jobs, but I do think it will provide more opportunity for them to find other things to do to make money.
Right. Okay. Connected to it, but I think it's an important distinction. It actually listed this, and it's very much similar to this one. That's why I just want to put it here now. Socioeconomic inequality, and I think what it meant by that, it didn't explain it, but it's about thinking about this from a global perspective, not just where from a California. It's like, what does this mean for the people who don't have technology? And ergo can't use the knowledge, and they're going to get ahead, and now we're in survival of the fittest.
Right.
Not only like, hey, inner city kid doesn't have a computer, but also this country that doesn't have technology, and now we're in the rich are winning.
Again, that's a reality that already exists.
Yes.
And maybe it does exacerbate it, because I am thinking, like, say you're a researcher and you have a professor, and you have researchers working under you, you will need less.
Yes.
But you'll also be able to research quicker, and you'll also be able to research more projects.
Yes.
But it isn't creating a problem that doesn't already exist, right? The disadvantage we have between poor and rich throughout the world, that's a problem that's already here. I don't. It'd
be amazing if this could somehow help.
And I think that
this
it can
could somehow be turned into the Thomas Friedman, like the Earth is flat. It used to be the big record companies are the only way you could get in the music industry. Now a kid in his bedroom can produce something that sounds just as good.
Right.
Earth is flat. Let's go. Right. Everybody can now participate in this, and hopefully it'll help with that.
Yeah, man, I just seen human beings be resilient throughout history.
Yes.
And always figure things out.
Right.
Till
the robots take over.
Oh boy.
Okay, so I think that one is an interesting one when you start looking at the distribution of technology.
Let's stop right there. So how should Christians think about that? Is economic disadvantage, or like how should we consider that or think about that as people of the kingdom?
Great question. I mean, you read the data. Obviously, the Bible has 300. I'm sure the comments will look up these fact checks. How many?
We just throw out whatever number y'all look it up and figure it out for us.
Look it up, guys. How many verses on poor?
Sure.
The marginalized, what Tim Keller calls the quartet of the vulnerable. The poor, the fatherless, the widows, orphans. so many verses, especially in the prophets, but also Jesus talks a lot about it. The epistles talk a lot about, hey, I'm going to do an offering to help the poor, all of that. You know, Isaiah 1 says, if you're not talking about the poor, I don't even listen to your prayers or whatever. So obviously there's a massive theme in the Bible that we would be thinking. And I remember reading this quote a while ago. I forget who said it. He said, you can't take the advantages of globalization without the responsibility of it.
Wow.
Fascinating, right? Like, we all love our clothes and all these, oh man, the money's coming in, jobs are being created because there's a global village now, not just a local village. But then we want to shuck the responsibility of, oh wait, these people are living in abject poverty and something. So it's a very complicated thing. But I think, of course, the church should be working to figure it out.
Right. Yeah, we should definitely consider the poor in all that we do and find out, look, how do I use AI to be a more generous individual? I think it's a question that we should all ask ourselves, right? When we think about the complexity of so many issues that we see in the world, and there's no system that's perfect because we live in a fallen world, I think one of the things that we think about as believers, like, how do we best help where we are? And as you say, as the world becomes global, we have to be global citizens and try to look out for the needs of others too.
Yeah, it's great. Anything else you have on that?
No.
Okay. One of the other things it raises was it talked about deepfakes. So it just basically said deepfakes.
This is the one that I am concerned about, I will say. Because it's already difficult in today's age to discern what's real and what's fake.
Yes.
And so what's happening with deepfakes, if you don't know what they are, somebody can compose a song. They can say, hey, write a song in the style of Kanye West, and then you can use some sort of video AI to make it look like Kanye actually said this thing.
I heard one the other day that it's JayZ's voice.
Yes.
But it's not JayZ. It had nothing to do with the project. It sounds full on JayZ.
Because these people have talked enough publicly, and there's enough data on the internet where it can compile their sentences and their words together. So you can hear something that you think is an announcement from the president, and it's not an announcement from the president. That is very dangerous, right? People already in
and not
reading,
only hear it, see
yes.
the president
you
saying
can't
it.
Determine that something is real.
Yeah.
So somebody could go to trial, I'm sure, plead some defense of, oh, that was AI generated, and it's going to take a lot of money and all sorts of things. And all you have to do is beyond reasonable doubt or something like that in order to not convict somebody. So the deep fakes, I am legitimately concerned about. I don't know what we do about it. I don't know how we do it.
Good point. The day this person was murdered, look, there's a photo of me at a Dodgers game. I'm right in the stands.
100%.
Look, that's me talking to my friend. And it was some deep fake created.
But by the same token, DNA helped to solve a lot of these things as well. But it is a concern. I think
so.
It will cause heightened skepticism.
Yes.
One of my rules is I'm like perusing the internet. If I see something that seems outrageous from a famous person, I gotta verify it and verify it and verify it and verify it.
And we know most people on the internet are exactly like that.
People's aunts and uncles don't do that at all, specifically on Facebook. You know what I mean? It's like you ever get something from somebody who you love and you know it's fake and they send it to you like, yeah, I didn't know that you were a sucker as well. Yeah. But it happens.
So one of the things about deepfakes is all of that. It'll create this hermeneutic of suspicion in all of us. We'll constantly be like, let me look that up. Is that actually, whatever?
Right.
But it's also like as to your point, as people of truth. Like, I'm just trying to take this from a Christian perspective now. We're supposed to be people who present truth, think through truthful things, speak truth. There's like a imago Dei thing here that I think it's raising. Like, is this good from and this is pretty deep, but like there's real image of God, flesh and blood people, and then there's these fake versions that are somehow we're interacting with them. Like there's some violation of some deeper thing going on. I think that's why it raises it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a justifiable thing to say, but maybe something that it will do will make in-person interactions more valuable and maybe shrink the world in some ways, right? So like for the longest, if somebody wanted a pastor, they had to pastor in their community and that was it. They didn't have any other options. They didn't have any way to travel, or there wasn't video. All of these things came into equate. Your pastor was your pastor. That's all that you do. Today, people can look at pastors from all over the world, listen to messages from all over the world, have their preference. But if we get to the point again where people are like, I don't like what's out there, I can come back and kind of be local. There is something I think that is sweet about that. There's something special. I don't know. I can't remember who was a pastor who said this, but he talked about being local and how essential it was to be local in the world that we're in. Continuing to be a local presence has value. So from a pastor's perspective, I'm excited about the opportunity to just be local in some ways, to be a part of my community and in my community, pastoring people that are tangible, that I can see. I think there's a desire for that in our world today.
Yeah. Do you think that the rise of technology and the video, going a little bit into, obviously during COVID, we all went to video, but there's been this after. There are churches that will just, you're on video, watch online. That's part of our church. So there's this debate. Is that real church? Kind of, because so much of church in the New Testament is like serve, do stuff, use your gifts.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting, taking in content is not church life.
Who did we hear the quote from today? That consuming
I think it was
content.
Craig Rochelle.
Yeah, what did he say?
So basically what I just said, like consuming content is not church.
Yeah, he said
those are different things.
A little better than that.
Say it way better.
Can you figure out the better way he said it?
Okay.
Consuming content is not
being part of the church or whatever. It's not the same thing as the point. So if that's all you're doing,
right.
And we've had versions of this again all through history where people are like, well, I read your sermon on the front of the newspaper
and that was enough.
And that's enough.
Yeah.
I got the content I needed. And the consumption of content is not
actually tangible and real is here. I think is that value is lifting back up. Let me give you another example about this. Last year, the whole talk of the town was the metaverse this, the metaverse that.
Yes.
I wore one of those headsets, and I love technology.
Yeah.
I love. If I wasn't a pastor, I'd probably be doing something in the realm.
Well, you worked at Circuit City.
I did work at Circuit City. I was a beast at Circuit City, selling people $100 cords.
Oh, I love it. You just sold me one of those.
HDMI.
You told me to get it from my TV.
Anyway, what point was I making?
Yes.
No,
you love technology.
I love technology. But the first time I put one of those metaverse headsets on, I was like,
right.
This is kind of
right.
It's not there yet, right?
Yes.
When it gets to the point where it's in the contact, different thing.
Yes.
But it just is not. It's not there.
So let's come back to AI for a quick sec, because I think there's a conversation we had about, and I don't think this point is super worked out in my brain yet and super strong and probably pretty easy to rebut. But I think there's
the name of the show is Underdeveloped.
Oh, okay, yes, that's good.
So we're developing.
I like
thoughts.
that. Yes.
Yeah. That's
so
not the name
it's
of
like
the show.
it's like there's something I think about it as a person who loves the arts probably more so than the sport world. There's something about the artistic side of it for me that's a problem. It's like it's like true art, and I don't want to sound like an elitist here, but just, it's born out of a real life, right? Like when you, what is it about the Mona Lisa or the sculpture of David? It's what you care about that. Is the history that it was born out of a certain time. Michelangelo was in a moment. There's a whole story about why it all matters. If a chat GPT just painted the Mona Lisa, you see, it's like to create a sports analogy. What is it about the Masters winning it that matters?
It's the history.
It's the history.
Right.
It's born out of a whole story and it has a thing. It's not the $3 million you win in the little.
No, we don't even think about that.
We project a meaning on these things, and that's from an artistic standpoint. I feel is, I don't know, a little in danger.
But I haven't seen it do anything to affect the arts.
Well, it paints and tells stories. It writes books. It's like you could say paint. Like I think I told you about this, but we were sitting around with a group of friends, and I had never been on it before.
Yeah, I saw this. Yeah.
Yeah, and so my friend said, what do you want it to paint? And I said, I don't know, just paint the 6 of us sitting at this dinner table having dinner. There's a sunset there. Get it to paint that. And 30 seconds later, painted this, and it was actually a kind of a beautiful painting.
No, it's pretty bad.
It was like this Renaissance abstract. It wasn't like a painting, like cartoon versions of us. It was like this. And I was like, oh, wow, 30 seconds, a brain that's not real painted this. And anyway, so that's one version of the artistic side that I've seen where it does draw, it paints, it goes back and does history. Anyway, just a thought of,
I mean, I think that goes back to the point we were just making, that real, tangible is going to have some value.
Yeah.
is going to make us, we're going to appreciate that a little bit more, I believe.
Right.
I do believe that that's one of the things that will happen, specifically when it comes out of the arts. But if a movie producer is able to shoot a movie and type code or type a command in, hey, edit at this point or blah, 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 and it can do that work that normally takes 4 hours and 20 seconds, that is to our benefit.
Yes.
Because we get more of it. But maybe more isn't a good thing. I don't know. I just
that's a good point. I mean, I don't always hate the CGI that a director will use to enhance a story. So why would I hate a computer generated piece of art?
Yeah, but I'm not, a big art person. Mona Lisa and David, incredible. Mona Lisa, but
hey, you heard it here, guys. Mona Lisa, meh.
I love it. Average at best. Anyway. But it is the history of knowing, like, okay, who painted this during what era and what time, and all those things I think are essentially important.
Yeah, and I think the same. It'll be interesting how it affects. I mean, I don't think there's a version of this where it affects sports in our lifetime. And like, I don't think you're going to see AI robots running around the basketball court anytime soon. But if they did get to that point,
it's going to be crazy. They come back to this clip 10 years later and just hooping.
And you would probably go, man, I'm having trouble cheering for that guy versus
the human being
guy who sweats and has to work out and get through the suffering that produces beauty in the world.
Sure. Versus
this synthetic thing that just like pumped out an impersonal lump. Just like, so anyway, so that's one idea. Here's something else that rose: racist bias. Okay, so here's what I think the example was. I was scrolling through something the other day, and you know how they do the AI did people in history, and they show picture, and it's like Jesus and his guys around the thing, or some guy in Egypt or whatever, and it produced almost like just a bunch of white people in these different spots. Sure. Like it has, and there was another example where someone was asking it a political question and it had a more progressive bias in the information that it gave, partly because it's probably easier to find or partly because that's the way the analytics is. I don't really know. But what about that? Like just the prejudice and bias.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
which is what the internet is anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's nothing. That's not a new thing that it poses and raises. I think they were doing some sort of sentencing thing, and they had an algorithm. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. I can't really explain it, but it had an algorithm to determine how much time somebody would get for a particular crime. And even in that, they found that to have some bias. You can look it up. I don't know. Somebody will put it in the comments or whatever. Yeah,
it's the judge at 4:00 sentences you harder than at 9 in the morning.
Well, that's a different. That's a totally different. This is a totally different example. This is when this algorithm literally they were using it to determine how much time people would get, and you would input these things, and they found out that it had some bias based upon people's zip code or something, and then certain zip code had more black people, so of course they were getting more time, and just all these things. That's a problem that exists, and the systems aren't perfect, right? And so we have to figure out how to fix that. But it's like what we were talking about earlier. When people are economically disadvantaged or when they're technologically disadvantaged, then they aren't represented well, and that just causes all sorts of issues. Yep. Listen, AI is not perfect. The internet is not perfect. This world is not perfect. People are not perfect. All of these things are affected by the fall of the world. All of these things are going to have flaws, and all these things we have to figure out how to make better and to redeem. Romans talks about the whole world is groaning for us to get back to where we were.
Yeah, and I love that. I just think some people, unfortunately, might interact with AI differently than they would a Google search or a Facebook scroll because of how much we say this thing is almost omniscient. It's so smart. It has so much information. We know our cousin sharing the Facebook thing is crazy. We already know that.
Right.
But an omniscient computer system that has contact to everything on the internet, I think we're going to doubt it less often.
I think we're already on the side of skepticism anyway. And we want to research things and discover things. If it can't be our only. People have to know how to research.
100%. Yes. I just think the general public might not put those filters on maybe as much when using
Yeah, well,
AI,
they don't do that on Facebook. They definitely not going to do that on ChatGPT.
Right. Okay. One last thing. It had 10 or 15, but I just kind of honed in on 4 or 5. We talked about the synthetic art piece. That was my own little thing. This one raised the lack of education question, which is, I think, an interesting one, where, you have guys like Gary Vee and to some degree Elon Musk and these guys online saying, look, we need to revamp the way which I agree with in some ways. Like, this is a whole new world.
Yeah.
Why are we still making kids sit around and do math equations the way we did? Cursive writing, all these kind of things. It's irrelevant. You can just go blah, blah, blah. You get the information. This ain't the 1800s. But isn't there... Okay, give your spiel on that for a sec before I ask a follow-up question.
First of all, let me begin by saying I love teachers. I think they got the hardest jobs in our country. But I do think the way that we do education is a little bit antiquated. And all you have to do is sit down with your kids and do a little homework to think to yourself, what are we doing?
Right.
The reason I know that my kids are in 6th grade, they bring some homework home sometimes, and I'm thinking to myself, what is the relevance of this in 10 years? Maybe it's helping them learn how to think. I don't know. But I think the way that we do education needs some change. And so guys like Gary that talk about college, there are certain jobs where college is certainly needed. And I think there are lessons that you learn in college beyond what you learn in the classroom. I think there's some social things you learn, some things to learn, about independence. But I also think there's no need to pay $40,000 to learn those lessons as well per semester, right? When they were much cheaper. So that's getting into a greater debate. And so if AI changes how education works, I don't necessarily know that that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. But just because you have access to AI does not mean that you're going to know how to use it to your advantage. You give me a tennis racket, I can figure it out, but I'm never going to be Serena Williams. Right? There's a certain level of expertise that you have to have when you have a tool that's put into your hand that has a whole bunch of power. So I think AI is going to require people to still get education and to figure out how to do things. I asked it how to code a website the other day. It told me, and I had no idea what to do with the information when it finished.
I love how you asked it, but then knew you would do nothing.
Well, I didn't know I wasn't going to be able to do anything with it. It sent it back to me. I was like,
But I have heard that from coders that it'll hit like a 98. They could literally copy and paste. Something that would take them 3 days, they can do in 30 seconds and then code a whole thing. But so that's very interesting. But coming back to, I do think, and I'm not a proponent of like old school, just let's all sit in the, because even the way we do education was born out of a system of a way of thinking. It was the kids within the lines of the desks and the way that we taught them, and it was to produce this kind of results, and it was all these kind of things. But I've always believed in old school in the sense of like, I mean, me, I read physical books still with a pen in my hand. It's a way my brain works. There is something about not just getting to an answer, but the journey of getting to the answer. Like you said, teaching people how to think.
Right.
Versus what to think, that somehow in this whole thing has to be. So I agree, so it's like, are we going to teach kids cursive anymore? It's like, okay, probably not in the next couple of years. I don't know. Maybe it's already gone. But it's like, was that doing something for our brains? It's like when jobs look at somebody and say, I'm going to hire you because you have a college education. It rarely means you have a college education in the discipline I'm hiring you for. It could be in English lit.
Right.
But it shows them things about you. Right. Your discipline.
Resilience.
You can write.
Sure.
You can think. You can read. You can have social interactions that got you to this place. So that's, I think, the part that scares me more. It's like, life's the journey, not the destination thing. It's like, yeah, of course we can ask our phones anything, but we don't remember that information. And what is that doing to us? It's like,
yeah,
I could say, what Lincoln, what year was he, but there's something about those dates and I don't know, maybe I'm old school, but like studying that stuff, I think shape me in some way.
The bigger thing is though, that you can ask harder questions. If it doesn't take me as much time, I can ask it harder questions and solve much more complex issues than I could solve
knowing the
100 years
date
ago.
of when Lincoln was president.
Why do I need to know that? When was Lincoln president? Boom, I got the date. I gave the answer. I moved on with my
And
life.
now I want to see what it means. Now I have time
Yeah.
to wonder what it all means.
Yeah, I can find,
ask deeper
I
questions.
can ask
Right.
deeper,
And that's
harder questions.
That's another thing I remember reading. I wish I had the quote on me, but Eugene Peterson in this book I was reading the other day on the Book of Revelation. He'd written in the 90s, but he talked about, we're all creating technology to do things faster, and but what are we doing things faster unto? Is it we're putting ourselves in these machines that get us to our jobs quicker, that we hate, that are just gaining money so we can sit in front of a television and watch nonsense that's destroying our soul, so we can wake up in the morning and get back in the technology and do it all faster unto nothing. It's like this really convicting, so I think that's a great question. It's like, with all this free time, which we know technology hasn't really freed us up. It's
we're
very
tethered.
interesting.
We're attached.
Yeah. It's come full circle.
Sure.
Anyway, okay. Any final comments on this?
No, just remember the opinions expressed here on Underdeveloped are
Being
underdeveloped
and very underdeveloped.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for joining us, and you may or may not see us again. Have fun. Maybe there'll be some music playing.